Today, we're diving into a book that, honestly, pulls no punches. It's called The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace-Wells. It's a really stark, unflinching look at what our future could be, and we're going to break down its most critical and frankly terrifying arguments right now. The book kicks off with this exact line, and let me tell you, that's not just for dramatic effect. That is the core thesis for a reality that, according to the author, we've been systematically and dangerously underestimating. So, right off the bat, the book just shatters this common idea we all have that climate change is this slow, creeping problem that's going to unfold over many, many generations. Wallace-Wells calls this idea a fairy tale, and it's a dangerous one, maybe just as dangerous as outright denial. Because, if you think of it as a slow burn, it gives us an excuse to be complacent. But the data? Oh, the data tells a much, much faster story. So get this, more than half, over 50% of all the carbon dioxide we've ever pumped into the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels has been emitted in just the last 3 decades. To put that into perspective, that's since the first episode of Seinfeld aired. Seriously. This timeline really shows you the insane acceleration. At the end of World War II, we'd only done about 15% of the total damage. By 1992, when the UN literally created its climate framework and the whole world was officially put on notice, we'd already hit the halfway mark. Think about what that means. We've done just as much damage with our eyes wide open as we ever did when we could claim we didn't know any better. And that's really the heart of this first part of the book. This isn't some ancient saga. It's the story of a single human lifetime. Our parents' lifetime, our lifetime. Okay, so how does all this accelerated damage actually show up in the real world? The next big idea in the book is that climate impacts aren't just a series of isolated events. No, they're all connected, setting each other off like a terrifying chain of dominoes. The book has a name for this, climate cascades. Don't think of it as a series of singular punches. Think of it as a chain reaction, where every problem makes the next one exponentially worse, creating these waterfalls of devastation. Here's a perfect real-world example from California. First, you get a long drought that turns the whole landscape into a tinderbox. Then, boom, you get these insane wildfires that just tear through all that dry fuel. And finally, because all the trees and plants that held the soil together are gone, the next big rainstorm triggers catastrophic mudslides. See, one crisis literally paves the way for the next. And this isn't just a local thing. These cascades are happening on a planetary scale, through what scientists call feedback loops. For example, as the Arctic ice melts, the darker ocean water left behind soaks up way more heat from the sun, which, you guessed it, melts even more ice. Or as permafrost thaws, it releases methane, a really potent greenhouse gas, which warms the planet more and thaws more permafrost. They're these vicious, self-reinforcing cycles. All right, so if everything is accelerating and cascading, what does that actually mean for our future? The book lays it out like a ladder of consequences, a ladder of doom, really, where each step up is another degree of warming. We hear these numbers all the time. 1 degree, 2 degrees, 4 degrees. They sound so small, right? But the book makes a crucial point. Our normal, everyday experience gives us absolutely no good way to understand what these tiny numbers actually mean for an entire planet. Let's just take 2 degrees Celsius of warming. This is often framed as our goal, our best-case scenario from the Paris Accords. But at 2 degrees, the ice sheets start a collapse that can't be reversed. 400 million more people will face water shortages, and major cities all around the equator just become unlivable. That's the best case. Okay, let's take another step up that ladder. 3 degrees. Well, at that point, southern Europe would be in a state of permanent drought. The area burned by wildfires every year in the US would be 6 times larger. And an average drought in northern Africa would last for 5 full years. And at 4 degrees? Now we're talking about a world with global food crises almost every single year. The amount of conflict and warfare could literally double. And there would be places on Earth getting hit by 6 different climate disasters all at the same time. And the price tag for all this? The estimated damages at 4 degrees could top $600 trillion. Let me just be crystal clear about that number. That is more than double all the wealth that exists in the entire world today. It's an unimaginable figure. So after painting this incredibly bleak picture, the book makes a really important turn. It pivots to the one thing at the center of it all: us, our choices and our responsibility. This is the great paradox, isn't it? As huge and out of control as it all feels, this isn't some asteroid hurtling towards us. We made this problem. And as Wallace-Wells argues, that means we are still in command of the story. But what are the stakes of the choices we make? Well, one study tried to calculate the human cost of just half a degree of additional warming, the tiny difference between hitting a target of 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees. Their answer? 150 million more people would die just from air pollution. Let that sink in. 150 million people. It's a number so big it's almost impossible to grasp. So to put that in the starkest possible terms, that is the equivalent of 25 holocausts. That's the real human cost of what looks like a tiny distinction on a policy paper. And this brings us right back to this final, crucial theme. This isn't a weather report from the future that's already been decided. It is a story, and we are the ones writing it, right now, with everything we do and everything we don't do. The final pages, they're still blank. So the book doesn't end on a note of complete despair. It actually ends with this incredible sense of radical responsibility. The fight, it says, is absolutely not over. Which leaves us with a real question, the one for all of us. What is our chapter in this story going to say?